Hello everyone. I recently intervened in a PC build discussion. It was aggravating for me, and I want to share why. I think you'll learn something from it. I may have said some things in the past similar to this. If I did, then oh well. Maybe I'll say some things differently than I did in that recording, assuming I did one. Okay, so to start it off, let's talk about what makes a good PC builder. In my mind, there's two main factors. The first being time invested. PC parts change basically on a yearly basis. As such, a good PC builder, one that does it professionally, should be reading reviews, articles, and other things as much as possible. If you are basing your advice or opinion on old information, then you have already failed before we've even gone to the second factor. A good example of this is I constantly see people saying that NVIDIA is the way to go for video cards. That's so not true. It has not been that way for many years. AMD, since they've acquired Radeon, has been doing a great job with their Polaris and Navi video card line. Polaris is RX 480, 580, that kind of thing. Navi is the RX 5700 XT and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, so kind of related to that, never ever let past experiences shape you. If you refuse to build with AMD just because you had one bad experience like 8 years ago, you failed again. PC parts, like I pointed out, change all the time. When a PC part is new, it will have problems or kinks. Those kinks get worked out eventually. If a review gives a particular component, say, a 4 out of 5 star rating, it's for a reason. If that particular component had failure issues, didn't perform as advertised, or something like that, I guarantee you it would not get a 4 out of 5 review. So always, always look for reviews. Second main factor into what makes a good PC builder is understanding and respecting the position you're in. There is tons of companies out there now. There's Origin PC, there's Evolve PC, Falcon Northwest, iBuyPower, CyberPower, the list goes on. The point is that there's so many companies now that the chances of an individual not part of a company getting involved in a PC build is slim. When somebody comes to you, it's going to be usually for one of three reasons normally. They're looking for you to do the list for them. They're looking for a second opinion, or they are looking for information, like what's the best out of two options type of thing. That is a lot of trust to put into one person. You need to give that person 110%. That means no old information, no biased opinions, or any of that crap. You leave that to your personal life. When it comes to the professional life and doing a PC build, you need to keep that client in mind, or that person in mind that you're helping. That's it. There's nothing else there. So, yeah, you just have to do that. Now, I want to talk about the Sapphire Pulse 5700 XT, as this is a good example of reading reviews and recognizing the budget. So, like I pointed out earlier, people say, oh, AMD is just terrible because it has crash issues or some crap like that. But that hasn't been the case in a very long time. AMD is actually very good. And in the case of the Sapphire Pulse Radeon RX 5700 XT, it's basically a reference RTX 2070 Super. If you look at any one of these bar charts on this page, you'll see that normally the Sapphire Pulse 5700 XT is about 10 frames per second slower than the 2070 Super. You may think, oh, that's a huge difference. No, it's not, because look, in any one of these bar charts, the Sapphire Pulse has managed to stay above 60 frames per second, even in 1440p gaming. In addition to that, you also have to look at the costs. I've seen a Sapphire Pulse 5700 XT for between 380 USD to 410 USD. Now, let's look at a brand name 2070 Super, because that bar chart was comparing it to a 2070 Super reference. When you get brand names involved, they're going to increase the speed to a certain point. EVGA is normally the faster of the NVIDIA brands, so while the Super Black in this instance may be more than 10 frames faster than the Sapphire Pulse 5700 XT, look at the cost, even with sales, rebates, and all this other stuff going on. You're looking at $500+ for this video card. So what it boils down to is you're spending $100 more for 10 frames. That is simply not worth it. Okay, so if the budget permits and the person wants NVIDIA now, that's a different story, because unfortunately there are some people who are stuck in their ways. PC builders aren't the only ones who are stuck on this AMD is crap mentality. There are just people who are so stuck in their ways that they cannot change. Sadly, those people are missing out a lot, but there's nothing you can do about it. So in that instance, then you need to tell them that you're spending $100 more just to get 10 frames. And if they're like, okay, well then that's just what you're going to have to do, because you can't change people. But yeah, what would be more worth it is actually investing another $100 for a 2080. If you'll notice, it's not that much more when you're going that far out. Now, in this particular circumstance, while it would be nice to get an EVGA, the 2080 is a flagship, so it is definitely going to be a lot faster than both the 2070 Super and the 5700 XT. So in that scenario, it's okay to go with something that's not as fast. Because look at the price jump. Just to get from an Asus to an EVGA is another $100. In my opinion, that's not really worth it. This will do just fine. So, yeah, you can kind of see that. You know, I can give one more example. Let's go and talk about AMD versus Intel. Recently, the two flagships of Intel 10th Gen was benchmarked. That would be the i9 10900K and i9 10980XE, I think it is. In those benchmarks, I'm fairly certain they were engineering samples. That was not mentioned, but based on the benchmark results, I'm going to guess that they are engineering samples. Now, even the engineering sample did not do much better than AMD 3rd Gen Ryzen for gaming. So just like the video cards, AMD has been catching up in the CPU department as well. 3rd Gen AMD Ryzen in particular is a perfectly good gaming CPU. It's one of those, it depends on your budget type of thing. While, yes, Intel can pull ahead maybe 10 frames better than an AMD processor, I mean, again, it's just cost, right? So, people will tell you that Intel is the best is, again, wrong. In that particular example, what it boils down to is what's it being used for and what's the budget. If there's no budget involved, then here's the things that you look for in the two CPUs. AMD is best for just all-around tasks, right? It's not designed just for gaming. It's also designed for streaming. It's designed for workstation. It's designed for editing and things like that. Intel, not so much. Intel has one goal in mind, and that's gaming. You will find that in most applications, plus or minus one, AMD 3rd Gen Ryzen will beat 9th Gen Intel and even 10th Gen Intels in just everyday tasks. They are a really good CPU. One bonus to the AMD platform, at least at this time, and I don't know if the next generation of Ryzens will change this, but on 3rd Gen Ryzen and 2nd Gen Ryzen, I don't know if 1st Gen does it, it has one M2 SSD connected directly to the CPU. That means the motherboard isn't doing the work, like in the case of Intel. It means the SSD is going directly to the CPU. In certain circumstances, what that means to you is that the CPU is not sitting idle. It's using more resources to help with other functions, such as the SSD. You may think that's a bad idea, but in reality it isn't. As a matter of fact, the CPU can process more than the motherboard can. So that means you're going to get more drive performance on the AM4 socket versus the Intel socket. At least that's what I've seen in tests and benchmarks. So, but yeah, that's really the most I have to say. Thanks for listening.